The revolving door at the White House continues with the resignation of UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Her decision to step down caught journalists off guard. They often look at her as a presence viewed as a moderate and calming force within the administration. Addressing the press following the announcement, the ambassador and the president had nothing but compliments for one another.
She's done a fantastic job, and we've done a fantastic job together. We've solved a lot of problems, and we're in the process of solving a lot of problems.
Countries may not like what we do, but they respect what we do. They know that if we say we're going to do something, we follow it through, and the president proved that, whether it was with the chemical weapons in Syria, whether it's with NATO, saying that other countries have to pay their share. I mean, whether it's the trade deals, which have been amazing, they get that the president means business.
Few know Ambassador Haley better than Jonathan Wachtel, her former director of communications at the United Nations, and we're pleased to welcome him back to the program for some insight on why the ambassador may have decided to walk away. Jonathan, always good to have you here.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Jack.
The headline was always surprise. Everybody was surprised that she stepped down. Were you surprised?
I was surprised just because I didn't expect it on that day, per se, but I wasn't surprised overall. It made sense. And, you know, a few months ago, I was thinking that she would be stepping down soon.
It made sense in what way?
It made sense in that when you're working at the United Nations in such an intense place, it's one thing. It's one of the most interesting jobs you can possibly imagine. You're knee-deep in geopolitics and trying to maneuver and
I've
work
always thought
to
it would be a fascinating job.
Fascinating as can be. Nerdy, but fascinating and intense. And actually, the stakes are so high. Very, very interesting. And if you're a career diplomat, it's pig heaven. But Nikki Haley is a politician. And at the end of the day, she has to think about her aspirations and where she's going from here. And this is, of course, a great learning curve for her that she's gone through at the United Nations. She'll come up to just close to 2 years by the time she finally leaves. And you learn a heck of a lot. I mean, it's like taking a graduate, a degree in foreign policy. And some, obviously, because you're in the hot seat, actually, formulating and pushing through policy. So fantastic learning curve for her and a great add to her resume on top of being a two-term governor in South Carolina. So politically, she leaves this on a tremendous high, capable of doing any number of things, whether she decides to go into private sector and make a stiff buck there, or actually get back into the political circle of things.
I want to ask you about some possibilities in a second, but I was struck by something that I saw you had said about this. The UN, the ambassador, is a great item on your resume. But you had mentioned if in the political world, it's kind of, I think you used the term, the backwater. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is you're in New York City, which, of course, is an unbelievable city and so dynamic, but you're not in the Beltway. You're not in Washington, D.C. You're not an insider. You're not in front of the president of the United States on a daily basis, certainly in trying to position yourself as a cabinet member to be the go-to person necessarily. Now, they were tremendously complimentary to one another in the Nikki Haley goodbye at the White House just now, or announcement at the White House. She's still going to be on the job for a couple more months. And the reason is solid. He did a solid for her. He performed, very, very strongly at the UN, did the things that the president wanted to do in terms of the Iran nuclear deal, in terms of Jerusalem, in terms of dealing with North Korea and tough sanctions on North Korea. She did her job. And of course, the president enjoys that tremendously because she looked good for him. It makes him look good. And she's a female cabinet member, solid, performed very well. So this, and she, of course, is filled with gratitude for having the opportunity to do this type of job. I mean, it really is a dream come true type of job, certainly for a phase. But again, she is a politician.
Last question before we turn the corner. We talked about maybe the private sector, maybe for a while, talk about her perhaps being a senator. And then there's always talk about the presidency. And she said at that, no, I don't have, that's not my intention. And it harkens to the notion of never say never kind of thing. Do you think that means never for her, what she said about not running for president?
I think it means at the present time, it's not expedient to do something like that. He's the president. He is still her boss. He won't be her boss in several months, and then she'll be free to do whatever she sees fit, or even before that, begin the process of moving the wheels. This was a deliberate decision. This is not something that came out of the blue. This has been long contemplated. given the circumstances of what's going on. Circumstances change in politics.
Exactly,
Today
as we know.
is not tomorrow, and certainly not a few months from now.
Well, I think people are going to keep an eye on her. Speaking of keeping an eye, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg re-registered as a Democrat. We say re-registered because some people may forget he was originally a Democrat, became a Republican, became an independent, and now has re-registered as a Democrat. I'm going to ask the same first question that I asked about Ambassador Haley. Did that surprise you?
It surprised me because, yes, it did. But you know what? He feels obviously it's time to step up in a concerted way. But he's been throwing millions of dollars at Democratic Party needs at this time in the state. And he's capable of throwing a lot more. He cares deeply about what's happening with the country, cares deeply about climate change and other international issues that are on the front burner and crises of our time. So in terms of him stepping up to possibly run, that shouldn't be too surprising. But you recall he went through probably a costly study of whether he was a viable candidate in 2016 and came to the conclusion he can't do it. But then again, if he had been the Democratic nominee at that time, it might have been a totally different scenario in all respects.
Right. Do you think in our atmosphere today, the notion, looking backwards, the notion of party loyalty used to be paramount? Do you think people care anymore about, okay, he used to be a Democrat, then he used to be a Republican, then he used to be an independent, now he's a Democrat again? Do you think people care if you bounce back and forth through those designations?
I think there are people within the parties, both Republican and Democratic, in the case of Mayor Bloomberg, that would call him a traitor. And you're just fickle, and how are you a trustworthy representative of our party? But I think we're coming to an age maybe where it's a little bit more acceptable. You look at Joe Lieberman. He couldn't get elected as a Democrat in his own state, got in as an independent, which was a remarkable sort of, one of the first people to actually cut through that way and be able to do it. Mayor Lindsay, I believe, was actually a Republican, and at one point actually
I think you're right.
took on the Democratic Party. It can happen, and that was a while back.
Right, right.
And managed to then serve another term with a new party affiliation. So it can happen. The thing that Bloomberg has, which is amazing, is his war chest. I mean, the guy is worth tens of billions of dollars.
So if he decides
more
I'm going to
than
make
Donald
this,
Trump.
if he decides I'm going to make this run, money does not become an obstacle. Isn't it nice to be able to say money is no obstacle? I'd love to say that just once in my life. Hey, Jonathan, again, always a pleasure to have you here to get your perspective and your insight on things. We'll talk again soon.
Great.